FinancialFashionHouse.com brings you another Entrepreneur of the Month. This message is sponsored by The Perfect Glass. We are here with Kirsten Rosenberg and Doron Petersan of the Sticky Fingers Bakery, which is a vegan bakery. Please express and tell us your story.
Sure. I went to school for nutrition.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the idea for the bakery came up. But first and foremost, it was my sweet tooth. I had been vegan, and there were just no good treats out there. I had to make everything myself, and so I started working on it, trying to figure out how to come up with these wonderful things that I had missed so much, like pies and cakes and cookies and whatnot. And people started tasting them, started asking me to make wedding cakes, make cakes, and
now I totally eat meat as well as dairy and stuff like that. So I'm having a hard time conceptualizing. How do you make sweets without the eggs and the dairy?
Well, it's depending on the recipe. It isn't always that difficult, but some recipes it's just a matter of leaving out certain animal products or using things like soy milk instead of regular milk, and we use a non-hydrogenated vegetable margarine instead of butter. Other recipes are a little trickier, especially when you're talking about eggs. You sort of have to figure out what the egg is doing in the recipe and then use other ingredients to compensate for the lack of the egg, but I'm telling you, you never miss it.
That was just for me because I have a sweet tooth and I was having a hard time conceptualizing that. So forgive me, but we're going to discuss your story. Tell us how this whole thing came up to what it is now. I mean, you have this bakery. I know it was just an image in your head. How did you create the image to have this bakery?
Well, as Doron said, it was her brainchild. And then when she was ready to open a shop, it just so happened we knew each other from before through our work in animal advocacy, and she approached me about coming on board and being her business partner.
And before that, I lured her with my sweets.
She did. Actually, yeah, she basically turned me into an addict for her sweets, and that was the only way I knew I would continue to get my fix, is if I joined up with her and we opened the shop together. And I too, I mean, I'm a vegan, but a huge sweet tooth and a major foodie, and I knew that there was a serious, totally. Do I look like someone who sacrifices on the food? Mm-mm.
Yeah, we're huge foodies. First and foremost, flavor. If it doesn't taste good, we're not making it, we're not selling it, we're not eating it. So it's so important to us to make sure that it tastes good. And not everything tastes exactly like we remember it, or, this, for instance, like a chocolate or a vanilla pudding isn't going to come out exactly the way that we remember it, but it needs to taste good. It needs to be rich. It needs to be really flavorful. We use really, really high-end, like vanilla and cocoa, things that are packed with the flavor. Those are really important to us.
Now, I'm curious, when you guys had this idea, did you get a lot of supporters to say, go ahead and do this, this is a great idea, jump out and try to have this vegan bakery?
Half and half. I'd say from the vegan world and the allergy people world, yes, people were like, yes, do it, do it, do it. I had so much support before I ever knew that Kirsten was a big fan. Before I was really ever doing it or thinking about having a bakery, there were people saying like, oh, you should market this, you should sell it, you should sell your ideas. So on that end, yeah, there was a lot of support. The other side, parents, family, close friends, some business associates are, oh, it's hard, it's going to be really hard, you shouldn't do it, it's going to be crazy, bakeries are hard enough, and then trying to do a vegan one, and what's going to happen if it doesn't work? You're going to have to put meat and milk and all this other thing. It's not going to work, it's not going to work. And I'm just a little stubborn. So,
as are most entrepreneurs. So how did you start out? Did you just start selling them out your house, or how did that work?
Sort of. I started making them out of my house and doing little bits here and there and more testing out of the house. And I knew that if I was going to do it, because I was in school for nutrition, I kind of knew how it would have to pan out. I knew some of the legal issues in DC, and then researching it with Kirsten as well. We quickly found out what we were going to have to do. But I knew it couldn't just be a home venture, and that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be somebody that worked out of my home making cakes for birthday parties on the weekend. I had bigger plans. And I didn't necessarily want to be a baker. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be somebody that was able to promote nutrition and promote vegetarian and veganism through food.
Right.
I didn't just want to make cakes. So I wasn't a baker first and foremost. Neither of us were cooks first and foremost. We're foodies, and the important thing to us was really to get the word out that it could be done and get the product
And
out.
that's an important point, that you are not necessarily bakers, but you have this bakery, and so that's very important for people. Can you talk about that transition from out of the house to now this bakery? I mean, we're in the nation's capital, and even though people may not live in Washington, D.C., they can actually get your products online. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So definitely that's one of the options out there. But tell us quickly, what do you think some of the pitfalls were? Like, if you could do it all over again, like, what would you say?
Well, I would bet so many entrepreneurs would say they were undercapitalized when they started, and that was certainly true for us. On the flip side, I think a certain amount of naivety helps going into a project, because we look back now and we're like, what were we thinking? We started with such a small amount of money in this teeny tiny space, and all we had were a couple of little tabletop display cases to put our goods in. I mean, it seems absurd now, and yet we were just naive enough to believe it would work, and it did. So, but if there's a way to get, fully capitalized, because you always hear the rule of thumb, it's going to cost twice as much, it's going to take twice as long if you're doing build out or setting it up, and it's so true. And people also need to decide, do they want to work in their business or do they want to work on their business? And for us, I mean, yes, we've worked in the business, but we also want to work on the business so that we can grow it.
Yeah, it's constantly, we have our goal in mind, which is, as far as growth, we constantly talk about the way that we want it to grow, but other than that, we know that we want to work on our business. We want to make our business bigger and stronger. I don't want to be a baker and make sandwiches all the time, though I will, and I have, and I do, as does Kirsten. I mean, we've worked every angle of this business, and any business owner will tell you that it is not glamorous, that you will clean the toilet, and you will be here until 2 in the morning mopping floors.
That's
and
an important point.
You're the last person to get paid, the first person to get here in the morning, and...
but that passion keeps you going.
Yes, because if it's not the passion, nothing else. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs or people that think that they do want to start their own business that come from a business background, I think those are the people that tend to get scared away from a lot of stuff, where they don't have the passion or the love for what they're doing, where they have the idea of this business first and foremost, and it does tend to scare them away. We've seen a lot of people come to us and ask us questions about how to do it, and they have the perfect business plan and everything perfectly lined up, and they don't love it. They don't have what it takes to be able to make it work, and unfortunately we do.
Or the flip side is people who have a passion for baking, and they're, I love to bake. I want to start my own bakery. I want to open a Sticky Fingers bakery. And for me, I don't have a passion for baking at all. I don't even like to cook, but I love our product, and so I think it's important too to recognize if you love something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always wise to turn it into a business. And if you don't have all the expertise, which I certainly didn't, we've been very lucky and very smart to surround ourselves with other people who had the expertise, the accountants, the people that could help us look at our books, the people that could help us with financing, all of the things that we didn't go into this.
Right, and that's an important point to understand that you need to hire those professionals to do the work that you may not necessarily be educated in, and that's critical.
A lot of times, I don't think we hired very many people. People just took us under their wing. They adopted us.
And just people
other business contacts that we knew through former lives.
While we were working second jobs, meeting people, while working in bars who were, I know how to do that. Let me help you with a spreadsheet. Oh, let me help you with some of this.
So we've been very fortunate that way.
That's been great. Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to give information and educate our seasoned as well as future entrepreneurs. FinancialFashionHouse.com. Cinnamon McCann, thanks so much, and come see us again real soon.